This is an updated version of my original video from 2023, so I hope you enjoyed the video. If you played any mobile games around the early 2010s, then chances are you might already know this game, Pixel Gun 3D. Pixel Gun 3D is basically Minecraft, but with guns. It's been one of the most beloved childhood free-to-play mobile games that we all used to play a lot as a kid. Before it all went to shit, with all the shitty microtransactions, shitty game modes, literally making the game pay to win, and shitty AI slop. Do I need to say more? Shout out to you if you guys remember playing on Warehouse Assault and using the anti-gravity gun to go out of bound just to fucking spawn kill everyone. Those were good times. Originally, this video was just going to be a quick follow-up to my old video, but then I rewatched my old video. So Newbie goes around his farms to take out these zombies. Why the fuck did I say take out instead of kill? I hate that. And I just recently learned of this official Pixel Gun 3D database containing some new information about the lore outside of what's simply shown in the campaign mode. Shout out to this guy for informing me about this. So with the addition of that and World 5 finally coming out after 7 years, I decided to remake this very video that literally jump-started my YouTube career in the first place, since now it feels very outdated and surface level, and thank fuck I have instant access to World 5, unlike last time. And after playing through World 5,
this shit is so fucking ass, bitch! Quit fucking music! Quit that shitty ass shit!
I'll explain later on. So if you already watched the original video, please stick around for new additional information I plan on adding as I go through World 1 to World 4. And feel free to comment down below if there's anything you want to add to the conversation. With that being said, please like, comment, and subscribe so that my brain feels happy. Before I get started, I just want to say a big thanks to my friend for encouraging me to make this video. And yes, I am recording all the footage on the PC port for better quality, since I had to record everything on my phone last time. Anyways, let's get things started here. Our story begins on a farm somewhere near the city of San Francisco, the real-life equivalent of San Francisco, California. We are introduced to the main protagonist of the story, Pixel Man, whom I'm still gonna call Newbie for the rest of the video, sleeping peacefully in his home when he grabs his gun after waking up to some strange noise coming from outside his house, to which they revealed themselves to be zombies.
The zombies are coming.
So Newbie went around his house to kill the zombies, and the cop, who unfortunately got infected while fighting off the zombies. And I'm questioning why there are 2 holes in his house when the zombie apocalypse literally just started. According to the database, apparently Newbie used to be a special forces operative, which explains why he lives in a farm for retirement, and why he always has a gun on hand. I wonder what kind of missions he used to go through. Anyways, trying to figure out what was going on, he heard a cry for help coming from the church, so he rushes there to help them. But unfortunately, Newbie was too late, as the church was already overrun by not just zombies, but other types of monstrous creatures, so you know that this isn't just a zombie apocalypse. He then found an evacuation plan next to the dead guy, so he decided to drive to the city. But as it turns out, the entire city was overrun by monsters, with a bunch of dead bodies lying around, some abandoned vehicles implying that they were unprepared for the apocalypse, and some textures that looked like they were imported from a certain well-known block game. I also tried to reach the top of a building, only to find more dead bodies, after killing what looks like it's from Resident Evil. I'm not going to make a comparison between the two, because I've never played Resident Evil. He then finds a card that can be used to enter the hospital, hoping to find answers. And just like any other zombie media, the entire hospital was infected, with more dead bodies, the red room, and a zombie holding a chainsaw. So yeah, going into the hospital was a terrible idea. He then spots a helicopter and decides to go after it, but he needs to cross the Golden Gate Bridge while killing through a horde of monsters, and a Left 4 Dead tank. Unfortunately, more of these abandoned tanks further showed that they came unprepared, and the bridge has been destroyed, and the helicopter has crashed into this prison, or Alcatraz, like in Money entertainment mythos. But when the monsters are approaching him, he then jumps off the bridge and somehow manages to swim all the way to the prison. I swear, Newbie is built different. Once he arrived, he fought through a horde of monsters, looked around the prison for a bit, and about this boss, in my original video, I didn't think too much about him until I watched my friend's video to learn that he might have been infected before getting the electric chair, and then Newbie went up to the top of the prison where the helicopter crashed and found a top secret file, which is the location of Area 52. Sadly, we're not going to be raiding Area 51, so he jumps into the ocean and swims towards the park, hoping it's still safe, only to find Slender Man and some sort of demonic ritual, which probably explains the existence of Slender Man in this universe. A couple things I want to say is that I remember being so scared as a kid that I stayed where I was and let them come towards me. The same goes for Area 52 and the school, and I know for a fact that I'm not the only one who thought of this, and the old boss used to be just this before changing into this. So yeah, that was a horrible night for Newbie. So a bit of walking, he then arrives at Area 52, only to find a bunch of aliens, the evil supervillain Megamind, and some fucked up experiments going around here. He then heard a noise coming from the UFO, only to find a scientist, who was not me by the way, who gave Newbie a map to where the portal is located, the school. Because as it turns out, the entire reason for the apocalypse was from that exact portal. Is anyone gonna bring up the fact that the kids have to pass through fucking Area 52 just to get to school? So Newbie uses the Jeep to drive there, and upon arriving at the school, I'm convinced that the portal transformed the school into something more fucked up than it was, which probably explains why there was an SCP research post in this school. This was never in the older version, by the way, and the creepiest parts are the hanging skeletons in that room, and these small pink creatures used to be children. At least it's what I think it applies. After defeating this jockey thing, he finds the portal that someone else had dug up and remembers how sweet his home was before the apocalypse. So he jumps into the portal with the intention of destroying the source of the apocalypse, and that is the end of World 1. So far we know that there was a mysterious portal that someone else dug up, which caused the whole apocalypse to begin with. That's pretty much it. Anyone who has played Pixel Gun 3D would remember how creepy World 1 was, especially in certain levels where you couldn't help but feel a sense of dread, yet at the same time feel nostalgic. And I know for a fact that there were these old bosses that used to be in the game before they got replaced with these bosses, and I think it fits well with their respective level, except for Chicken Jockey. I'm sorry, but this thing does not fit well with the spooky vibe of the school, considering the school is supposed to be a reference to Silent Hill. I don't know, I've never played the games. I would appreciate it if the devs made a revamped version of Pyramid Head to replace Chicken Jockey, like how Henry Stickmin changed the obvious references to avoid copyright issues. Anyways, moving on to World 2. Newbie just teleported to this strange new world when he heard a cry for help. He rushes over to see an evil chicken man going after a schoolgirl. Heh, hello.
Chicken jockey.
In my original video, I referred to her as the schoolgirl because she didn't have a name last time I checked until the devs decided to give her an official name. Daisy. After defeating the evil chicken man, we now know what caused the whole apocalypse to begin with. So, Daisy and her school friends were digging in the schoolyard for fun when she found a mysterious portal. She and her friends went through the portal out of curiosity and woke up the dragon, angering it to the point that the dragon decided to send all the monsters to Newbie's world. So basically, she is responsible for the apocalypse. How was I supposed to know that hitting the dragon with a shovel would cause the literal end of the world and the deaths of millions of people to begin with? But that raises some interesting questions. Where did the portal come from? Why does it exist? Did the dragon create that portal? We don't know for sure, but we do know where the dragon lives. So Daisy decided to tag along with Newbie and help him find the dragon to save the world, and maybe answer some questions about the portal's existence. But first, they need to cross the desert and kill some mummies and this golem thing, while Daisy is sitting on the sidelines and does absolutely nothing. They then continue their journey to the Sky Islands for a place to rest up for the night, and it looks pretty safe. Or not. Wait, pigs can fly? After a good roasted dinner, Newbie and Daisy are having some fun jumping through the floating blocks and arrive at this winter island where Newbie notices the pumpkin-headed snowman moving, which turned out to be a snowman monster. And then there are more monsters. And for some reason, the snowman mage looks like he belongs in Terraria's Pumpkin Moon and Team Fortress 2. After a bit of redecorating, they ride onto the floating ice sheet towards the Hell Castle, where the portal to the dragon is located, only to run into some demonic monsters and the devil from the depths of hell. Also, while browsing through the wiki, I noticed that there was a dead body on the cross, so I had to explore the map a little, but I couldn't seem to find it anywhere. Anyways, after defeating some demonic monsters, they finally found a portal to which they jumped in and teleported to the parallel world, where they have to face another horde of monsters yet again. Then, they finally faced the dragon, the one source of monsters that destroyed Newbie's world, and also basically the Ender Dragon. And after finally defeating the dragon backs down and apologizes, and agrees to chase down the monsters from Newbie's world. And now that it's finally over and the world is saved, we now have a much bigger problem at hand, which is that they're all made of blocks. Apparently, the question of why they're all made of blocks is much more important than the literal end of the world and the portal's existence. So important that the characters are becoming self-aware of themselves and are having some sort of existential crisis. So the dragon gives Newbie and Daisy a ride to solve the biggest mystery of why they're made of blocks. And that is the end of World 2. So far we know that some kid found a portal in the school and accidentally woke up the dragon, which caused this whole series of events to begin with. And after finally defeating the dragon and saving the world from the apocalypse, we now have this new mystery to solve on why they're made of blocks. Honestly, I thought this was where the story should have ended. Like, it does kinda make sense for the monsters to come from another world, very different from Newbie's world, but I'm questioning why it only took one level to kill off the spooky vibe World 1 had, even though it's still nostalgic. And even after 2 more worlds, we still don't know why the portal was there to begin with, so we are left to assume that the dragon created that portal. That is, until I read through the database, did I learn that the dragon did not in fact create that portal, which I will get into later on. Anyways, moving on to World 3. Several hours later, they arrive at the swamp, which appears to be floating for some reason. Unfortunately, there is a barrier that the dragon cannot pass through, so Newbie and Daisy bid farewell to the dragon and went out without him, and that was the last we ever saw of the dragon. Except, we do know what happened to him afterwards, but we'll get to that later. Moments later, they stumble upon these swamp monsters they have to kill, including this giant spider. Kinda sucks that I can't jump over the castle walls. After retrieving the key from the spider, they use the key to unlock the castle, to which the wizard welcomes them.
Ha ha ha! Today, I have the guests for dinner.
In a not so friendly way. Honestly, I kinda hate that I have to walk around the level to kill them. It's so uninteresting. After defeating the wizard, Newbie asked the wizard why everything is made of blocks, to which he responded by explaining that
Our world was made by the great creator. It was so magnificent. But in one of these days, here came an ugly monster, deforming everything on its way. This evil turned our beautiful world into this cubicle mess.
So that leaves us with a couple of questions. What kind of ugly monster turned everything into blocks? And who is the great creator? We don't know yet, but
Only the great creator could tell you how to change it. I can send you to him.
so the wizard creates this portal to send them to where they can see their home from there.
Not exactly, but you can see your home from there.
Only to realize the wizard tricked them by sending them into space. And no, the wizard did not create that portal in the school. I already checked the database, which I'll explain later on. And now they have to fight some aliens, including this alien professor, who is the same boss from Area 52, but only this time, he's riding on a UFO with an explosive ray. After killing some aliens, they put on some spacesuits and go onto the UFO. They flew back to their world and landed in a metropolis. Of course, the military mistakes them for aliens, so they have to kill some actual human beings. And this military mech, fuck, I remember how much of fucking pain in the ass it is to kill this thing. First human kill count, by the way. As for why the military was stationed there, no idea, because there's no sign of any zombies or dead bodies like in the city. They then found some jetpacks, which can be used to fly towards the Great Creator's house. Newbie then breaks into his house and finds the Great Creator hiding behind the couch, who is actually just your average game developer. But we now know why the whole world is made of blocks. This is Persus Markson. Very creative name, I know. He was working on a wonderful game, as he explained, when an unrecoverable error was made, so unrecoverable that it changed the game code entirely and transformed the whole world into blocks. And for some reason, no one seemed to notice that they're made of blocks until the dragon brought it up to Newbie. Luckily, they can still fix this mess and turn everything back to normal. One bad pun later, Newbie was given a VR headset to go inside the virtual world to defeat this evil bug, right after dealing with these code monsters. And I almost forgot how fucking tanky these code dragons can be. Right after defeating the evil bug suddenly turns Newbie into a new bug. I'm no expert in coding, but is that how it's supposed to work? And Newbie is now trapped inside the internet, and that is the end of World 3. So, there is a lot to go over. So apparently, Dollar Store version of Notch was making this game. Then the evil bug turned everything into blocks, which the dragon became aware of. Then Daisy woke up the dragon, which angered the dragon to send all the monsters into Newbie's world. And now that the evil bug is defeated, we don't know if the whole world is truly back to normal, since Newbie is now trapped inside the internet. What the fuck this story has gone to. Let me show you the difference between World 1 and World 3. Exactly. Maybe we'll see how the story plays out in World 4, but first, I think it's time we actually take a look at the database and learn more about Persus Markson himself and the world our characters live in. This is the official Pixel Gun 3D hub, where on the left, you will see a tab that says Database, which contains all the information about the lore of Pixel Gun 3D, and was added in November 2025, 2 years after my original video was uploaded, so that's part of the reason why I had to remake this video. I'm only going to be covering the important parts for this video, because the rest is just filler. With that being said, onto the database. When you start reading the foreword, you'll start to realize that everything about the lore is written by the man himself.
If you're reading this, it means my notes somehow managed to break through firewalls, glitches, and, quite possibly, someone's common sense to reach the outside world. So either a miracle just happened, or these files will quietly rot away in someone's spam folder. But hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? In this archive, I've gathered everything I could about the simulation. A world where I, your humble servant, ended up as an unwilling explorer. Who knows, maybe these records, files, travel notes, and messy impressions will one day help me get back to reality? Yeah, wishful thinking. At the very least, it's a decent way to kill some time, and way easier than hunting down a time-killing gun. Yes, that exists here too. There's so much I need to tell you about the crazy worlds of this digital multiverse, about noble heroes and cunning villains, about weapons so absurd they make no sense whatsoever, about betrayals, intrigues, daring feats, and of course, Pixel Cola. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin. Oh, right, my name of course. I am Persus Markson, but around here they call me the Creator. Nice to meet ya.
This is the first time I'm hearing about this simulation and digital multiverse. The database also goes more in depth on Markson's backstory.
Yup, that's me, Persus Markson. Maybe you've even heard of me in the real world, though probably not. I've been making video games for as long as I can remember, with a few dozen titles behind me. The thing is, I was always much better at creating games than marketing them, so if my name doesn't ring a bell, no hard feelings. One thing I've never been is a social butterfly. Quite the opposite, really. I could count my friends and acquaintances on one hand. Sounds a bit sad? Maybe. But it gave me the perfect excuse to pour all my free time into game development. I could spend days building another prototype, forgetting about sleep and food, until my body kinda reminded me it wasn't a machine. At least not in the real world. And I figured, hey, maybe that's a problem I could fix. So after some tinkering, and a couple of small-scale techno-apocalypses at home, I built an experimental VR capsule. I'll spare you the technical details, plus my patent request is still pending, but the idea was simple. The device could transfer my consciousness straight into the computer. Not only could I keep working on games from inside the machine itself, but time there also flowed much faster than in reality. A dream come true. Day by day, I spent more and more time in virtual space. Imagine, 1 weekend equaled years of progress. Prototypes turned into worlds. Worlds turned into entire multiverses. Sci-fi, fantasy, zombie apocalypse, horror, all at the speed of thought. It was a magical time, until I messed up.
Wait, hold on a minute. The comic literally showed Markson developing his game from his computer in the real world, but it never showed him transferring his consciousness using a VR capsule into his computer. Maybe we need to read more into this before jumping to conclusions. And I'm just gonna move over to this part of the database, which has some of the same information, but one goes even more in depth.
Everything changed when I was finishing work on a new prototype, a cubic-style shooter with the working title PG. Instead of simply saving the project and returning to the real world, I accidentally launched the compilation process. What's that? Well, just a little thing that tried to merge all of my earlier projects into a single data array. Yes, by accident. Yes, it was a terrible mistake, and no, by the time I saw the progress bar and the endless stream of error messages, it was far too late to cancel. The worlds were incompatible, different engines, physics, rules, even logic itself. Millions of errors flooded the system. The auto-debugger couldn't handle it and decided to fix the issue the only way it knew how, by merging all the errors into a single entity. One massive system bug is better than a million smaller ones, right? Spoiler, wrong! That's how the bug was born. A living, breathing, programming nightmare. The embodiment of all my mistakes. I barely had time to glimpse its monstrous form before it took control of the virtual environment and stripped me of my developer privileges.
And it also sealed his path back to the actual real world, and became a prisoner of his own creations. Okay, so if I understand this correctly, he transferred his consciousness from the actual real world into this virtual world, like the Nerf gear from Sword Art Online, which would mean that this exact house could be the house he created himself, so he could work on his game in there nonstop, which would explain why Markson in this panel wasn't made of blocks yet, and why he was hiding in there. And when the big bad bug was created, it transformed everything into blocks, took away his developer privileges, and sealed his path back to the actual real world. So I guess that would have explained how Newbie and Daisy were able to travel to where Markson was located easily, and how the dragon and the wizard knew Markson as the great creator, and knew that their world didn't used to be made of blocks. And since time flows differently than the real world, it makes me wonder how long time has passed in the actual real world compared to the virtual world he's in. Oh my fucking god, this shit is fucking confusing. So you know how the characters were traveling between worlds? So apparently, they're all part of this virtual multiverse called the simulation that somehow exists inside Markson's computer. And they used to be a collection of Markson's old projects, but it wasn't until the bug incident that the worlds Markson created became alive and are continuously evolving on their own, without Markson directly controlling them. But luckily, Markson and all the other inhabitants of the simulation can still travel between worlds using this thing called the Portalium, which are these glowing purple crystals that Markson himself scripted, so he can instantly travel from one world to another. I'm assuming this is the Portalium Markson is referring to, which is confusing to me because why is it fucking blue in the game while the database says it's purple? And if these worlds are part of the multiverse, that does kinda explain the sudden shift in tone between the school and the village. Here's an interesting part of the whole simulation. This cubic style shooter game he was working on was the foundation that shaped the whole simulation. And apparently, when it comes to guns, the most common way to resolve conflicts is to shoot each other in a battle and can respawn anytime. So you mean to tell me that all of the online matches we've been into during our childhoods, the pool party, the Call of Duty map, Ant Life, Capture the Flag, the arena, the co-op survival, and the Hunger Games could possibly be canon to the lore of Pixel Gun 3D, just like in this panel in the TF2 comics? I don't even know what to say at this point. All of that got me thinking, if the simulation keeps generating new worlds on its own, won't Markson's computer run out of storage eventually? Or maybe the cubification made the simulation so self-aware that it knows how to not just free up space, but also somehow find its way through the internet. But if Newbie is trapped inside the internet, wouldn't that mean that Newbie, who was already inside the virtual world, went inside another virtual world? I guess we'll figure that out later in World 4. And thank fuck I don't have to fucking grind again and play on hard mode again. It has been either a day, a month, or 3 years since Newbie has been trapped inside the internet. He then noticed a light shining above him, which turned out to be a crane picking him up into a ship. This Morpheus-looking guy is the captain of the ship and is about to tell Newbie something, but was interrupted by a group of droids attacking the ship. So Newbie went out to defend the ship until every single one of them is destroyed. Not sure why the captain calls him player though, but anyways, after fighting them off, the captain tells Newbie that there is an entity known as Gyiyg who has created these games inside the web and traps people, forcing them to play a variety of games and make sure they don't escape back to the real world. But in the case of Newbie's world being part of the simulation, the real world is basically where both Daisy and Markson are. So does that mean that we're inside the Matrix, inside of another Matrix? Again, I guess we'll figure that out at the end of World 4. Fortunately, the captain tells Newbie that he plans to start a revolution to free everyone from Gyiyg. To do so, they need help from 3 champions, who are the most powerful players in Gyyg's games, and Newbie's task is to recruit them, starting with the champion of Kubota 2. Though he is currently in battle, so Newbie is going to have to grind hours of League of Legends in order to defeat him. Wait, Kubota 2 might be a reference to Dota 2. Okay, thank fuck, they didn't become League of Legends players. After defeating the champion of Kubota 2, the next champion Newbie needs to recruit is the teleportal champion. Only he has the ability to create a portal to Gyiyg, though it appears that he is obsessed with finding cake, like in Portal. So Newbie gets attacked by some robotic defenses, and then this cake thing reveals itself. Now that all the robots and the cake are taken care of, Newbie recruits the teleportal champion and is now ready to recruit the final champion, the parkour champion. Turns out we need him to turn off the defense system in Gyyg's Citadel, so to recruit him, Newbie is going to have to beat his obstacle course, while defeating some animatronics along the way. Word on the street is that children are still stuck on this level, like how they're stuck in a Roblox obby, which I wouldn't blame them since the level fucking sucks. But if you're smart, then it is very important to know how to use checkpoints correctly. Now that all the champions are recruited, they finally arrive at the Citadel to stop Gyiyg once and for all. Not before the admin shows up and takes form of Newbie, and then clones themselves. So they have to kill all the clones and the admin, which, oh my fucking god, I forgot how much I fucking hate this boss. Last time I had to find strategies to fucking beat this thing, and finally, break the defense system, leaving only Gyiyg itself to defeat. The teleportal champion then creates a portal to Gyiyg, but unfortunately, only one can go through. So naturally, Newbie goes through the portal. After all, he is the main protagonist of the story. He defeats all of Gyyg's minions, and finally, defeats Gyiyg once and for all, and frees everyone from the internet. And then a high score shows up, and Newbie realizes that it's all just a game called Gyiyg Revolution, and then he teleports back to where it all started, floating inside the abyss of the internet. The whole series of events begins to repeat, and at this point, he starts to understand how the game works, and is left trying to figure out how to escape. And that is the end of World 4, and possibly the last we'll ever see of Newbie. For all we know, he may be trapped inside this loop forever, or maybe one day, he'll eventually break free from this game, which were the exact words I said before I ended the video. But now with the addition of the database and World 5, I still have a lot more to say about the lore now. So, how does this all make any sense? How is it that Newbie, who was already inside the simulation, went inside another simulation? Well, looking at the database, apparently Newbie is trapped inside the deepest layers of the simulation's code, a containment zone where corrupted code like the big bad— why is it so hard to say the big bad bug, where the big bad bug can't spread, as it says in the bug's database, and also somehow found its way into Gyiyig's territory, where Gyiyig rules the border between the internet and the simulation. So because the simulation found its way through the internet, this gave Gyiyig endless inspiration to make whatever games he wanted to in his domain to trap his victims. But so far the only victim we know of is just Newbie, which I guess has somehow inspired him to create this game about freeing everyone from himself, which I'm assuming is just to break Newbie's spirit and make him give up. Again, I'm still having trouble making sense of this, since this information was added years after my original video was uploaded. But aside from that, do I need to show gameplay from World 1 again? I swear, this game used to be creepy as shit, but now it's just straight up fucked. Why did the story go from a creepy zombie apocalypse to the fucking Matrix? But you know, I couldn't help but wonder what happened to both Daisy and Markson while Newbie was trapped inside the Matrix. Well, luckily, we do know what happened. For Markson, I'm not entirely sure. He's probably finding some ways to bring Newbie back. And for Daisy, according to the database, it would seem like during her journey with Newbie, she wanted to be courageous like him. So right after Newbie was trapped in Gyiyig's domain, Daisy spent years trying to find a way to bring Newbie back while traveling across the multiverse, which explains why she looks different and grown up now. So no, she did not in fact turn into a ghost. But is there a reason why her hair color changed from blonde to orange? Also, remember the dragon from before? Well, interestingly, the database says that he was written to be a conquering villain, but because he was aware of his role and that he was made of blocks, he decided to choose against it and entered a long slumber. That is, until Daisy woke him up, and the dragon destroyed Sandblock Cisco by instinct. But everything seemed to work out just fine, because right after the events of World 3, apparently he and Daisy reunited and became best friends afterwards. And he can also turn into a human, and became a hero of the simulation. So I guess the dragon already forgave her for hitting him in the head, off screen. Like, we never got to see that anywhere in the campaign mode. We only see them working together in the season videos that the devs decided to upload apparently. Don't believe me? Let's see what the official Pixel Gun 3D YouTube channel has to say.
Daisy, once known merely as a campaign girl to many pixel gunners, now emerges as a key figure in the plot. The dragon from the second chapter is transformed into a new character.
Just so we're clear, I have not played any of these seasons, nor do I care about participating in their 11th anniversary event. I'm only just finding this out while doing research for this video. And of course, I think it's finally time to answer this one question that started it all. Where did that portal come from? While watching through these videos for research, you may notice these two individuals and wonder, who the fuck are these two? One I will talk about in World 5, and the other is apparently related to that portal from the school. As explained in the database, where in Area 52, a bunch of scientists discovered portalium and tried experimenting with it, and from the command of a power-hungry tyrant, they also tried to turn it into a weapon, which is how the iconic prototype we've used during our childhoods was created. But that's not enough for him, because the military also wanted to create a portalium armor led by a brilliant scientist known as Rick Sanchez. Mick Rodriguez. But he didn't like what the tyrant intended to do with portalium, so he tried to stall as much as possible. But that angered him to the point that he made him put on the portalium armor and shoot him with the prototype. And when the smoke cleared, there was nothing to be found other than a pickle. And it's the funniest shit I've ever seen.
Turn myself into a pickle, Morty! Boom! Big reveal, I'm a pickle. What do you think about that? I turned myself into a pickle! I'm Pickle Rick!
Jokes aside, he was presumed dead and was transported to another world, while parts of the armor and portalium fused with his body, granting him the ability to travel to other worlds. But without the exact coordinates to return home, he was wandering aimlessly around the simulation while slowly losing his mind. He did eventually find his way back home, but it was at this point that he had already lost his mind and became a villain known as Portalius. and never appeared in any of the panels in the campaign mode, because the only noteworthy thing about him is that the portal he left behind after he returned home was actually the same portal Daisy found in the schoolyard. So that's how the portal was created and caused the fall of Sandblock Cisco to begin with. So we're supposed to believe that he's the big bad villain, and like, yeah, his backstory is tragic and all, and maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know what sort of crimes he committed for the heroes to have a reason to defeat him. As far as I know, he has only appeared in the birthday season videos, and not anywhere else in the campaign mode, especially in World 5. You can try reading it all yourself, but like, after reading all of this, it made me wonder, what was the point of introducing him into the story? Was it solely to fill this exact plot hole I asked about in my old video or something? Because listen, I'm trying my best to understand all of this, but this just keeps getting more convoluted, even without filler. But I don't fucking know anymore. The only thing I can do now is to move on to World 5, because surely it can't get any more convoluted than this, right? Anyways, World 5 is surprisingly a lot shorter than I thought it'd be, but to say World 5 is rushed would be a massive understatement. We still don't know how long it has been since Newbie has been stuck here, but we do know that being stuck in this loop 1,331 times can change a man entirely, but all of that would pay off when the portal finally appears, and could truly be his escape once and for all. Right after going through another obstacle course and killing a bunch of enemies to do so. According to the database, Cubic couldn't comprehend Newbie's stubbornness and possibly got bored trying to torment him, so that's how Newbie managed to break free from this loop. Unfortunately, the portal that should have led him home led him to somewhere else. The backrooms. First the movie came out, and now we somehow got the fucking backrooms that Newbie has to traverse through in order to escape. All it takes is just using your brain and following the symbols, because that's how level design should work. The only important thing to talk about in the backrooms is that it's supposed to be some sort of barrier between the stable worlds of the simulation and its deepest layer of code. Still not sure how that truly works. And residing in it is an entity known as Kitty. Not the new metal band, the actual cat thing, who seemingly cannot be killed but teleports if you shoot it. While Newbie was fighting his way through the backrooms, Daisy and this organization known as the PGA were trying to find a way to bring him back. The PGA is basically an organization dedicated to maintaining the stability of the entire simulation. I'm only mentioning this because they're apparently important to the story of World 5, but I literally cannot think of anything else worth mentioning, other than them trying to study the backrooms, but seem to have a hard time doing so, so there's not really much to talk about. But somehow, despite the backrooms being next to impossible to escape, Daisy, the same schoolgirl introduced in World 2, managed to bring Newbie back, even though Newbie used a VR headset to go inside the internet. So either what's happening in World 5 is still all in the VR headset, the VR headset somehow sucked him into the internet, or the devs just decided to retcon everything. Either way, after all these years, we finally reunite with Daisy. Only for the bug's code to still be inside Newbie, because remember, the big bad bug turned him into a bug in World 3. Luckily, only Markson knows what to do, but unfortunately, he has been hypnotized by this Mesmer guy, and the whole world is being corrupted by him as he approaches our heroes as a giant. Who the fuck is this Mesmer guy? And who is this guy? So upon looking at the database, his name is Eddie Mesmer, and apparently, he used to be a simple AI assistant for Markson to help him with his game and organize stuff. It wasn't until the bug incident that Mesmer became self-aware and eventually became an evil master manipulator, and has been terrorizing the simulation ever since. And apparently, I feel like I've said the word apparently way too much at this point. Apparently, he used to work with Portalius, and it pisses me off that I have to read through the database to make sense of all of this. So, just like Portalius, he's supposed to be the big bad villain of the story, but he was never mentioned anywhere in the past 4 worlds up to this point, so why introduce him out of nowhere and expect us to already know who he is? I consider the bug the main villain because he is the entire reason the whole world turned into blocks in the first place. It honestly feels like the devs expect us to read the database to understand the story story better, because I thought reading the lore should be something we do on our off time, like how I like to go onto the Disventure Camp wiki to read about characters I like, not something that is required before playing through the campaign mode. And for this guy, there's not a single database about him other than some other agent who's probably not even relevant to the campaign mode. Anyways, we killed some enemies, built some defenses, and defeated Eddie Mesmer just by shooting him while avoiding enemies. You've gotta be kidding me. Is that all it took? Markson snaps out of his hypnotism, which I don't even know how he got hypnotized in the first place, and the simulation is free from Mesmer's bugs. However, we still need to destroy the bug that's still inside Newbie, so Markson gives him this crystal, and now for the final level of World 5. Hey look, the dragon decided to show up out of nowhere apparently. Where the fuck was he during the past few levels? This utility Markson gave him should allow Newbie to enter his own mind to fight against the bug. Upon entering his own mind, he travels through a recollection of the previous levels we've been through. The parkour city, where we can see Eddie Mesmer in the distance. The wizard's castle. The parallel world, where we can see the funniest shit in the distance. And Daisy sitting there like the old times. The school that is somehow even creepier than before and almost looks identical to the old school version. And finally, it all leads back to Newbie's home, where his whole journey began and where he'll face the bug's code and finish this once and for all. It was a bit of a struggle going around the map and evading his attacks, but it would all pay off at the end when he finally defeats the bug from his own mind and returns home to his friends to celebrate his victory.
Once again, Pixelman has won. Not only did he break the time loop and escape Gyiyig's domain, survive the horrifying maze of the backrooms, and stop Eddie Mesmer from taking full control of the multiverse, but also faced the bug's corruption within his own mind and erased it. Pixelman has achieved what once was thought impossible. But when too many rules are broken, when too many impossible events happen at once, reality itself begins to tear apart. And through the tear, the winds of change begin to blow. Now the entire multiverse will face a calamity of unprecedented scale and power. The Pixel Storm. Brace yourselves. The age of conflict, wonders, and transformation has begun, just as planned.
And then it fucking cuts to the promotion of Pixel Gun 2. I don't know much about it, but isn't Pixel Gun 2 AI slop or something? Not to mention, have we forgotten that the entire reason Newbie came to Markson was to inquire why the world is made of blocks and to help him destroy the bug to uncubify the world? And the bug was the reason Markson was trapped inside the simulation. But since the bug is destroyed and Newbie freed himself from it, shouldn't the whole simulation be uncubified by now? And shouldn't there be a path for Markson to return to the actual real world? Especially considering this AI slop is supposed to take place after World 5, and everything is still made of blocks. The only logical explanation I could come up with is that whatever came out of this bug created the Pixel Storm, and the Pixel Storm is somehow keeping the whole simulation cubified and preventing Markson from escaping back to the actual real world. I highly doubt that would be the case since... Do I need to mention again that Newbie used the VR headset to go inside the internet to destroy the bug where Gyiyg was living? So, would it be safe to assume that everything that happened in World 5 happened while Newbie was still inside his VR headset? Or did the devs decide to just retcon everything? Whatever the case, I think it's safe to assume that Markson will forever be trapped inside this cubified world. At least until our heroes somehow find a way to stop the Pixel Storm from breaking everything. I will give it to them, Exodus was actually the best level in World 5. It's basically a throwback to all of the previous levels we played during our childhoods, and somehow brings back the creepiness World 1 had, and ties it all back to where it all began. But at the same time, I can't help but feel that this level is trying to pander to nostalgia, like some of the shorts the official channel have made in the past few months. Still, it's frustrating to know that when you play through the first two worlds, well, mainly World 1, you can tell that the devs actually put care into it. It's why it's the most memorable out of the 5 worlds. I feel like the existence of the database and the multiverse season was just their attempt to fix some of the plot holes and the messy storyline, but still make the whole story even messier in the process. And I think it's very clear considering they focus more on making the game pay to win than making an actual good story like in World 1. and also fixing a lot of issues the community has brought up. I like to think of this as the case of the story starting off strong, but it gets worse the more you progress through the story. I really hope we get a World 6, because if the next part of the story is in Pixel Gun 2, then I'm sorry to say this, but you're gonna have to find someone else who is willing to cover the rest of the lore going forward. And seeing the current state of Pixel Gun 3D, I don't feel confident about the future of the game. So, there's no point in lingering on the past, and as much as I love to relive my childhood memories, it's probably best to just move on to better things, now that we're all getting older. So, this will officially be the last time I'll ever make a video on Pixel Gun 3D, but it's still crazy to think about how I was only 19 years old when my original video fucking exploded, and literally jump-started my YouTube career in the first place. So with that being said, thanks for watching, follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky, check out my other videos if you're interested, and now would you excuse me, I'm gonna go play Yakuza Kiwami too.